We have no idea what's happening.
I'm really excited about that possibility and what we might be able to do with it.
Everything is ruined because the only part of this bloody rocket that works is going to be thrown into the Gulf, and I'm not happy whatsoever.
Tomorrow begins right now.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tomorrow. Thank you for being here with us. We have a interesting show for you today, and because we're such gearheads, it's quite a bit of rocket updates, a couple of rocket failures, a few accidents, and quite a few updates as well. So we're going to be talking about all of that and nerding out quite a bit today. Joining me today is our own Jamie Higginbotham, who was able to join at the last minute, and I'm very pleased about. We also got Ryan Caton that is with us. We've got our ever faithful Dutta and Jared Head, and my name, of course, is Space Mike, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. Thank you for being here. So yeah, there's been quite a few interesting things. I figured that we would start today with the most recent thing that happened. Yesterday, ISRO launched their PSLV rocket carrying a satellite for the Indian government, but unfortunately, it wasn't able to reach orbit. The PSLV rocket, as a reminder, is a 4-stage rocket that also has some strap-on solid rocket boosters, and everything performed normally for the first and second stage. But unfortunately, there seems to be what they call an observation with the third stage, and it appears that it did not perform as expected. And their altitude quickly dropped, and the fourth stage was able to separate. So the third stage didn't explode and destroy the payload, but because of the altitude it was at, the fourth stage didn't have enough power to get it to where it needed to go. This is quite unfortunate. This is only the third time ever out of 61 launches that this particular rocket has failed. The first 2 times were early on in the development of the rocket. So they've had nothing but success with this particular rocket. It's considered the workhorse of the Indian Space Research Organization. So a little unfortunate to see this setback for them. I figured
You got some video?
Yeah, I figured that we could pull this up. Let's go to there we go, and let me start playing this for you. So initially, you guys getting the audio coming through on that?
Yeah.
कक्षा की ओर अपना सफर जारी कर चुका है।
So yeah, the initial launch and everything in the first couple stages of flight, as I said, went normally, and things were looking like it was working well.
That shot is beautiful. Sorry to interrupt, but you can see the vapor cone around the top of the vehicle. I mean, that's just incredible shots.
It is. It's nice to see the video quality slowly improving as well with these ISRO launches. So, yeah, really nice to see. There was a handful of other pictures that I saw of someone at the pad. I wasn't able to get the full ones, but it looked like they were able to capture quite a bit of the second stage separating from the first stage and the strap-on boosters flying away. So, yeah, once again, the first stage and second stage performed as expected and where they were supposed to go. I'm going to move forward just a little bit more. This was about the part where they started seeing anomalies after it separated from its second stage, and the third stage was starting its ignition. As another reminder as well, the PSLV is quite a strange rocket that like to call the leapfrog rockets. Kind of both of them are like that. The first stage is, well, of course, the solid rocket boosters on the side, of course, are solid fuel. The first stage, though, is a liquid fuel stage. Um, and then, or excuse me, no, I have that backwards. The first stage is also solid in the core. The second stage is a liquid stage that uses hypergolics. The third stage goes back to being a solid rocket fuel. And then the upper stage, the fourth stage, is liquid again, and it's a monopropellant type of fuel that they use for that. So uh, that's why I call it the leapfrog rocket, to be able to go back and forth. And I'm going to go just a little bit further to their graph here. This is right about where they started seeing the problems and seeing a drop in their altitude, and seeing things not on schedule, or at least not on their flight plan of what they were expecting. So unfortunate to see. They're still looking into what the causes of this were. They might have had, I mean, for all we know, so many people have been having problems with nozzles lately, that it could have just been a problem with the the nozzle, because it looks like the third stage did ignite, but then something happened not too long after to have it start losing altitude. So hopefully, once they are able to do their investigation, if they were able to get more telemetry data, they will release that to the public. Um, this is a statement here. Um, I'm not sure exactly who this is from, but
This is from India Today.
oh, okay. So according to India Today, and it looks like this is a quote from Dr. Sharma anyway. So yeah, India's PSLV 61 mission intended to deploy their advanced EOS-09 Earth observation satellite failed minutes after launch Sunday morning due to a suspected flex nozzle malfunction in its third stage propulsion system, according to initial analysis. So yeah, what is up with this? Everyone's having such bad luck with their nozzles.
I think this is also kind of the curse of the EOS satellite, because the two previous EOS satellites have failed to get to space. One of them on a GSLV Mark II, which is, infamous for being unreliable, and then another one on the SSLV, which is a relatively new vehicle for ISRO to be operating. So this is now the third EOS satellite that is not managed to get to its final orbit because of a rocket failure, and then all three of them are on different rockets. So I think the common denominator here is the EOS satellite. I'm not sure if anyone will want to launch them in the future.
They might be, this might just be the satellite that's cursed. A GSLV one, that was back in what, 2021? Was that when that one happened?
Yeah, so the GSLV Mark II failure was 2021, the SSLV was 2022. So it's been, 3-4 years since the last failure with an EOS satellite. But it's just, every time an ISRO launch goes wrong at the moment, it seems to be related to an Earth observation satellite, which is kind of funny.
Oh man, that is pretty funny. But yeah, 2025 just seems to be the year for having nozzle problems. It's unfortunate.
I mean, but to think about what you're asking a nozzle to do, you're asking it to harness all of the fire and direct it in a direction, and it's providing all of the thrust. Like everything that the rocket is doing, all of the movement that the rocket is doing is coming from the work of that nozzle. That's a huge thing to do. They're not easy.
Yeah. From the chat room, Hoopaball says at least it didn't hit Pakistan. Yeah.
My
No
microphone
there.
fell.
Uh-oh, you okay? What were you going to say, Jared?
I was just going to say, this is a series of radar imaging satellites that India uses for a variety of things, both military and civilian applications. So, there's currently 4 of these satellites that are operational on orbit, with 6 that have attempted launch, and I guess now 2 that have been lost during those launches.
Yeah. Certainly very, very interesting. Aravel had a question here. Do they have strap-on boosters of different sizes? And the answer is yes. I believe that they are using 2 different sizes right now for the PSLV. And from my understanding, the SSLV, their small satellite launch vehicle, is using a derivative of the larger of the two strap-on solid rocket boosters that they use for the PSLV. That's the core stage of their small SSLV launch vehicle, the small satellite launch vehicle. So this particular launch used the smaller of the two strap-on boosters, and not sure when they're going to be using the larger ones again.
Sagan says they said deployable nozzle, so it's more complex. And I believe they said flex nozzle.
Yeah, so
So
the nozzle on the third stage, to my knowledge, is as Mike said, it's there's 4 stages to the PSLV: a solid stage with strap-on boosters. There's a liquid stage. There's another solid stage, which is the third stage, and then the 4th stage is the liquid stage. So the third stage is solid, but it has a gimbaling nozzle, to my knowledge, and that's different from the first
Right.
stage, because the first stage nozzle doesn't actually gimbal itself, but they control the gimbal of the exhaust by injecting gases out of the nozzle into the stream of propellant to try and say if your propellant is coming out like this and you inject gas this way, your propellant is going to be forced more to this side of the nozzle, causing your vehicle to turn. So that's the how it's done on the first stage. But the third stage is different. The third stage has an actual, like the shuttle boosters, for example, the actual nozzle physically gimbals. So that's physical hardware that's moving in there. And that appears to be what has occurred with the nozzle on the third stage. That has malfunctioned in a manner which has prevented the third stage from continuing on its nominal trajectory. But it still appeared to keep going because, as Mike said, the 4th stage separated. The 4th stage kept trying to got as far as it could have. So the third stage, except for the nozzle, the rest of the stage seemed to be doing exactly what it was meant to be doing. You know, kind of identical to what happened with the second stage on Firefly's last launch. It kept going just without the extra bit of the nozzle.
And to kind of help go ahead, Jared. To kind of help
Oh,
visualize that a little bit, you see the solid rocket boosters with the nozzles that are kind of extending out to a little bit, and then what looks like a little small solid rocket booster. I believe that's that system that you're talking about, where they do the venting there in order to control the essentially the gimbaling of that. Because
Yeah, exactly. That's like the extra storage tank bolted onto the side to carry the gas in order to do that steering.
and it doesn't separate it stays connected to that core stage the entire time until the core stage itself is separated.
Gotcha.
All right.
yeah, and just wanted to let you know that on that third stage with the solid motor, I looked it up real quick just because I was interested in it, which is that the thrust vector control system is actually used for pitch and yaw, and it's actually only plus minus 2 degrees, which isn't much, but it's certainly enough if you've got the oomph behind it like that does. The roll control is provided by the reaction control system of the 4th stage of the rocket. So the guidance navigation control during the third stage burn is a collaboration between the third and the 4th stage. So we'll certainly have to see what comes up with that. And then also, this is a note here too, which is that the 4th stage on the rocket used to have a niobium alloy nozzle, but it was expected to be replaced by a silicon carbide coated carbon-carbon nozzle at some point in the past year. So this, if we're talking nozzles, so it seems like everybody's been having fun with nozzles over the past couple of weeks. Yeah, there's a possible brand new nozzle, maybe second, maybe third flight of that nozzle. Who knows?
Yeah. From my knowledge too, they only did a test, a ground test of that nozzle for the first time just this year, and are also working on like a 3D printed version of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Something I find kind of interesting and convenient too about that 4th stage, as you mentioned, Ryan, how that's what's using the reaction control systems. It's using the same fuel, so they don't have to have like a separate system for it. Of course, there's helium to keep it pressurized, but they don't have to have extra tanks. There's essentially just able to use the fuel that is the primary fuel for that 4th stage in order to operate those reaction controls. So Pretty cool system that they have for it, and all of these different things that they're testing is going to definitely help them out in the future when they introduce their next generation launch vehicle, which is supposed to take over for both PSLV and GSLV eventually at some point. So they're making a lot of progress on stuff. Unfortunately, the thing I'm most excited about, their Gaganyaan human space capsule, has been delayed yet again. There still might be a chance that we see a uncrewed test flight of that at the end of this year. But if Berger's law is a thing, which has been proven over and over again to definitely be a thing, it's probably going to slip into the first quarter of next year. But still rooting for all of their programs and progress that they have going on.
Wait, what's Berger's law?
Berger's law is that if something slips into Q4, the fourth quarter of a year, it's more than likely that it's going to actually slip into the first quarter of the following year.
All right. Jamie's law is if it slips to quarter 4 and you haven't done a static fire, then it's slipping an additional year. That's my law.
Yeah. We've seen that happen before, haven't we?
Yep.
Quite a few times.
What if you don't do a static fire as a part of your normal process?
I guess this would be for new vehicles only, right? If you can't wet the vehicle, if you haven't been able to figure out how to wet the vehicle and you think you're launching in quarter 4, you're not launching next year. You just aren't, right?
Static fire and wetting the vehicle are two different operations, though.
Understood, but okay, that's fair. That's fair because you could wet the vehicle without actually making fire. Oh, I gotta work on this law. All right, fair enough. I'll put a pin in that law. I'll get back to it.
Gotta send it back to Congress.
Vetoed by Dutta.
We'll send it back to the focus group.
Yeah,
Man, it didn't even make one. It had one critique and it fell apart.
Yeah, that's not a.
You're welcome.
That's laws are well held and understood. That's wrong.
If you want to excuse yourself, yeah, we don't want to get Jamie in any trouble. And Ryan, I figured that you would kind of help us. There's been quite a bit of confusion and a couple of weird signs that we've been seeing. What's going on? Tell us what you've been observing.
We have no idea what's happening. That pretty much sums up the next 30
and
odd
that's
minutes.
Our show, folks. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
no, just
thanks
kidding.
for watching. We'll see you next week. So, as you may recall, a couple of weeks ago, SpaceX attempted a 6-engine static fire of Ship 35. That's the upper stage for the next flight of Starship, the 9th flight of Starship. Something clearly didn't go quite right because A, it ended after 30 seconds. We were expecting about 60 seconds. B, there are a lot of bright flashes. And C, SpaceX never confirmed anything to do with the test afterwards. So they rolled the ship back to the yard, did some modifications, we assume, rolled it back out to the Massey test site, did another 6-engine static fire. This time it ran for 60 seconds, looked much, much cleaner. That was emphasized by the fact that SpaceX followed it up with a following tweet saying, basically, it went well, we're gearing up for the 9th flight of Starship. Here is
nothing to see
tweet.
here.
Nothing to see here. I'm going to just let that roll through.
Beautiful test, right? It looked wonderful.
Beautiful beam.
Initially,
the fact that they even released this beautiful footage tells us that everything went well with this test as well.
Yeah, or let's just say at least the indication SpaceX had at the time were that it went well, because initially there was a road closure set up from the Massey's test site, bypassing the production site directly to the launch site. So we were expecting SpaceX to roll the ship from Massey's directly to the launch site, which at that time, the booster for this flight, Booster 14, had already rolled out to the launch site and been stacked on the pad. So the booster was on the pad, the booster was ready. They removed the alignment pins from the mount that they used to make sure that when they're lowering the booster into the mount, they don't damage the booster, right? These pins help them wiggle the booster into exactly the correct position. They removed them, and they usually only remove them when they're not planning to destack the vehicle, right? So they remove the alignment pins when that booster, the next time the booster will leave that pad, is under the power of its own engines. But then that closure was rescinded, it rolled to the production site, and it's been hidden away inside Mega Bay 2, ever since it got back to the production site. So that's the first red flag. The second red flag is that suddenly we've seen a Raptor vacuum engine leave the mega bay. And to our knowledge, the only vehicle inside the mega bay right now with Raptor vacuum engines is Ship 35. So perhaps something on that second 6-engine static fire didn't go quite as expected, and SpaceX only found that out after they'd, edited the video and released a public statement saying everything went well. So it hasn't emerged since. And the thing that's even worse is after they stacked the booster on the pad, removed the alignment pins, and took the booster transport stand they move it about on, they moved that back to the production site. They then took that transport stand and took it back to the production site, removed the booster from the pad, and the booster is now rolled back to the production site and is hiding in Mega Bay 1. So both of the vehicles are back at the production site, the launch site is empty, and nobody knows what's going on. And that's about it in terms of the hardware. So what's happening? What are you doing, SpaceX? Can you just give us some answers, please?
I like this comment from Aravel. Someone sat on the confuse media button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta keep them guessing.
Gotta keep them guessing.
But the worst part is that's only the hardware, because then we got even more regulatory nonsense this week.
Yep.
So as you can see on my screen share, there was the Reentry marine hazard in the Indian Ocean was updated, which to start on May 26th Central Time, May 27th UTC. As you may or may not be aware, the 26th is a federal holiday in the United States, which means SpaceX can't close the beach on that day, which means that the new no earlier than date is effectively May 27th local time, May 28th UTC. We're still waiting to see if the other air notices and local notice to mariners follow with shifting to this date. And to make this even worse, the updated launch license was released by the FAA, and it removes the clause that allows SpaceX to return the booster to the launch site. And NSF reached out to the FAA and they confirmed that in the current license, SpaceX is not allowed to return the booster to the launch site, ruling out a catch on the next flight, which means everything is ruined because the only part of this bloody rocket that works is going to be thrown into the Gulf, and I'm not happy whatsoever. That's it. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
Tell us how you really feel.
Ryan on the soapbox.
Oh, man. Yeah, we were all looking forward and hoping for a potential Starship launch next week, but now that doesn't look like that's going to happen. And I wonder too, because Elon was saying that he was going to do a live broadcasted update about Starship and getting back to the factory and hopefully getting things back on track. I wonder if that's going to be delayed a little bit as well, closer towards that launch, if they get the licenses that they need for it. But man, even the early indications that we have seen for their notices to airmen is a much bigger keep out area than what we have seen before. Actually, I should pull that up so I can show you what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if I was looking at the FAA licensing correctly, it looks like they're basically doing a preemptive closure of the airspace around the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos there. So, which is something that has not been in place. And I know that it's annoying, but it's probably better to just have it closed, period, than it is to make everybody, run away or fly away from an airspace or turn around ASAP as soon as they can,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've brought that up on my screen share. So the last couple of flights, you may remember, aircraft have had to divert, they've had to turn around. Those were in response to what are called debris response areas. So these areas are not published beforehand. These are air traffic controllers. And then if a mishap occurs, those are then activated by the local air traffic controllers. You might recall some videos from channels like VAS Aviation of the San Juan ATC going debris activation, debris response area has been put in effect from this point to this point to this point to this point between time A, time B, get out of my way. This time around, the FAA is clearly showing the clearly enacting presumptive notices, just I presume to make sure they don't have to activate any of these debris response areas, and so pilots and airlines also have access to that information, and they know not to be in this location at the time of launch. And this is predicted to, off the top of my head, disrupt over 175 flights. I think it's something like 70 plus airways are going to be impacted, and the airport of the Turks and Caicos Islands, Providenciales, is going to be completely closed off. It's going to be closed during the time of the launch. But that airport isn't exactly, London Heathrow, so that shouldn't be that big of an impact. Only a couple of flights are expected to be impacted from that closure.
That is quite a narrow gap that they're threading there between Florida and Cuba.
I mean, it depends how narrow. It's all relative, I expect, right? I wouldn't want to swim it.
No, but the potential for anomalies and debris outside of that range, I think, is greater than what it looks like it should be, or is less than what it looks like it should be.
Either way, though, it's still encouraging to see them getting ahead of the game and just in case. I'm okay with that. And actually, I did want to bring up this comment from Joshua Collins that does make a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that it's the first time reusing a booster. So you want to make sure that it can get through ascent again and do a pinpoint landing for a second time. So good point. Even though that booster has flown well and the booster is the only part that's working right now, it is the first time that they are reflying this. So with that in mind, I do kind of understand why at least the FAA doesn't want them to attempt to do a catch of this again, just to make sure that it will work for the second time before doing that. So
SAC needs to update the Expressions of Ryan t-shirt. We need a Starship isn't doing what he wants block.
The only one that says slightly different.
Yeah. But I mean, it's similar to what they did with Falcon 9, right? The original Falcon 9 boosters, they used them twice, maybe three times. Like, wow, they're using this booster 3 times in a row. Now they've done like 28 flights on one booster. Pfft, who cares, right? I mean, so fingers crossed that kind of attitude isn't too far away with Starship, because this is meant to be, rapidly reusable, hopefully more than once.
If I may, maybe people don't care about this as much anymore, but if I can hijack this for a second, something that I'm really excited about is the changes that they're making to the core of Falcon Heavy, and planning on flying it as a single stick version without the boosters on the side, and doing multiple launches of that and landings of it before they use that core for the Falcon Heavy configuration. And I'm really excited about the possibility that they will actually be able to ramp up Falcon Heavy flights and be able to recover not just the boosters, but also the core stage of that as well. And hopefully ramp it up and do more things with it. We're all excited for Starship and definitely want to see it flying all the way into orbit and start deploying payloads and do the in-space propellant transfer demo and start doing the lunar missions and eventually the Martian missions. But I would love to be able to see the Falcon stay as a workhorse for not just SpaceX, but the United States in general for many, many years to come. And if they can get these tweaks figured out with Falcon Heavy to make it a lot more, I don't want to say profitable, but cost effective for them to not have to keep throwing away the core stages of Falcon Heavy, I'm really excited about that possibility and what we might be able to do with it. So that was all.
What are
NRJ
those for those who are? I was
NRJ
going to
says,
ask for
unpopular opinion, maybe Boca Chica is very risky launch pad as it passes over lots of islands and that narrow band. They need to get a Florida launch pad ready, but it's risky for other launchers.
Well, they're in the process of doing that, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I think I have doubts that Florida is a safer location to launch from, right? Boca Chica is designed to be their research and development facility, so I understand what Dutta was getting at earlier, but that corridor, the needle they have to thread so to speak. I think it's bigger than it looks on the map. Also, they have very beefy flight termination systems now. It's been massively upgraded, like 2x upgraded since Flight 1, or even beyond. So, personally, I'm not really too concerned about that. But like Mike said, they are working on building up Florida capabilities right now. We can see at their Roberts Road facility at the Kennedy Space Center, they're building the launch mount for Launch Complex 39A. SpaceX says they want to get the first launch out of there at the end of the year. I have my doubts. I think 2026 is the more likely option for a 39A Starship launch. But either way, that's going to, the first Starship to roll past the VAB, that is going to be like incredible. That is like spectacular. That is going to be like top 10 spaceflight moments ever. That's just going to be imagery. It's going to be iconic.
But it seems like Boca Chica has what a degree of inclination variation that's possible without going over land. Like that seems like it's a huge limitation on where they can launch to.
It is, but I also think that's kind of the
until
point.
But that only serves a purpose until you're done with research and you're basically in space by the time you hit your next land mass.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
that's the whole
Boeing
point of
flight doesn't start off in Seattle. Every Airbus flight doesn't start off in Toulouse. These are research and development facilities.
That's apples and oranges. If you're looking at the capabilities of a launch site, the downrange, the inclinations that you have at your availability are restricted by what's downrange, and you have to have your vehicle in a safe and predictable trajectory by the time it reaches the next landmass or populated center. And that's the reason why Vandenberg can only go south and west. And that's the reason you've got a hole in Florida's launch inclination capabilities. You can go up to the north and you can go up to down to the south, but there's a space in the middle that you can't reach. So Boca Chica has like 1 degree of going between Florida and Cuba that it can hit. How useful is that going into the future?
Limiting?
Depends on the missions.
Yeah. In terms of Starlink operational missions, they're going to, if they want to do Starlink operational missions from Boca Chica, they're going to have to do huge inclination changes in orbit, but just because of how the Starlink constellation works, right? They go to 40 odd, 50 odd, 60 odd, 70 degrees, not 26 degrees or whatever the latitude is of Boca Chica. So either they only launch missions going to 26 degrees from Boca Chica, or they do in space inclination changes, which are very expensive in terms of propellant. But then again, Starship is the most powerful rocket ever made, so it also depends how big your payload is. So I don't know.
Can I pitch a delusional bad idea? What if they do
Nothing I can do will stop you.
What if they do a point-to-point flight first from Boca Chica to one of the Caribbean islands like the Bahamas, and then launch wherever they want from there?
They already have, just in bits.
They already have, just in bits. Oh my gosh.
Well, they can't cross populated centers that way though.
And yeah, Nathan, isn't Boca Chica also closer to the equator, which makes it more efficient place to launch from? I mean, that was the whole point from the get-go, right? Was to make it take advantage of the Earth's rotation and closer to the equator and all that.
I don't think it is.
It's
looking
kind of
at the map, I don't
negligible.
think it is. It's
looks
not that much
pretty-
closer.
It is barely. It is closer barely. It's
By like
it's an
10
incredible
miles.
Yeah, it's
That's nothing.
so yes, it will yes, it will be more efficient, but you also have a more restricted launch inclination. It's barely more efficient, and at what point does that even matter? Because the transport emissions have shown not everyone wants to go to a perfectly equatorial, most efficient orbit you can possibly reach, right? Many want to go to SSO, many want to go to polar, many want to go to retrograde. You know, launching east is not the only thing. Launching from the equator is not the holy grail of rocketry. Maybe this is a Ryan hot take, but I think the whole we have to launch to the east thing is incredibly overrated, and people pay way too much attention to it because I don't think it really matters.
Jared, was there?
It only doesn't matter. It only doesn't matter if you have the delta V to support going the other way.
Yeah.
We're getting a little hung up on this, but Jared, was there something that you wanted to share before we move on?
Yeah, I was just going to say you have to thread the needle between Florida and Cuba, and then the western tip of Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula, and those are some very narrow needles in order to thread. At least with this early on in the Starship program. I mean, nowadays we have Falcon 9s that overfly Cuba during polar launches, right? We just basically make sure it's offshore of Florida enough, and then whoever's downrange, they can deal with it. At least it seems like the attitude sometimes. So, and then also the long-term plan is to put Starship in Florida, right? So Boca Chica's always seemed more like the research and development kind of side of things as opposed to the truly future operational side of things. So I don't know, we'll see. And then also I just want to say Starbase and Cape Canaveral to kind of throw them both out there. Cape Canaveral is about 28 degrees north in latitude. Starbase is about 25 degrees north in latitude. So if you really wanted to actually do it, you'd call up Ariane Space and be like, "Hey, can we actually use your launch pads? Because you're not using them very often." So
we need a Starbase mount down at French Guiana.
mm-hmm. Yeah, then we can have some more rumble in the jungle.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like they're pumping too much into it for Boca Chica to just be an R&D center. I mean, they've gone all the way of making Starbase an actual city within Texas. So I could be wrong. I mean, it might just be the future Starlink launch site, and that might be all that they end up doing with it. But I have a feeling that they're pumping so much into that area that it's got to be more than just an R&D facility, but you never know. Plans could change at any time. But
at the
we're
same
not privy
time,
to that
Elon
info.
is not known for being conservative with spending money.
Yeah, there is that, and conservative with staying where you want with design, right? Because composites are where it's at.
Oh man. So I wish that there was some video, and there probably is, but we're probably never going to see it for this next thing. Gilmore Space is trying to launch a rocket, an orbital rocket from Australia.
Oh my God, I heard about this and how hilarious. How freaking
man.
hilarious. Like, was there, hang on, before you tell it, was there a payload on this? A real payload?
The more like the top secret wheel of cheese type of payload.
Okay, so nothing that was going to be like functional in space.
No, just a jar of Vegemite. This was literally just the test flight of this rocket to make sure that everything worked on it.
Okay, continue.
So from what they said, they were doing some pre-flight checks, and they had an unexpected issue. They had an observation. No fuel was loaded. Nobody was hurt. The ground wasn't damaged. What happened is their payload fairing deployed out of nowhere when they were doing all their pre-flight checks on this thing that they were hoping to launch this week. They've gotten the regulatory approval for it from Australia and everything. And for anyone who's played Kerbal, this is exactly why Scott Manley tells us to check your staging.
Do you think someone hit a wrong button, or do you think there was like a problem with the configuration?
Some sort of electrical short or something.
Can you imagine being the person who accidentally hit the button that disengaged the payload fairing on the ground? You will never live that down.
Or was this even something like back in the day, the Russians had a handful of their launch escape systems that accidentally took off when they were just doing tests on the ground because they had started up a system of doing tests. And there's a possibility, I have no idea, I don't have any info about this, but just my assumption is that there might have been some sort of timer of like, okay, we have started this count, and somewhere around the T plus 330 seconds or something like that, I'm just throwing numbers out, this is supposed to deploy, and
Yeah.
nobody forgot to turn that off, or something else, or like what you said, somebody just accidentally hit the button. And
No, Mike,
Whoops.
your scenario is far more realistic. There's probably not a deploy fairing button, right? Let's be honest.
No
Let's
space
be
bar?
honest. It's in
Somebody
an
hit
auto
space bar?
sequencer. Yeah. Oh, too soon. It's man. If
With
anyone
a
wants
boob,
to know,
you mean, Mike?
no. If anyone wants to know my spacebar story, after dark. So I assume that's what you were referencing, Space Mike.
Actually, I was just talking about Kerbal. That's how you do stages, is hitting spacebar.
After dark, and I'll tell you how I screwed up an Elon event with a spacebar. No, you're probably right. It's probably an auto sequencer, right? Like there is no deploy there's no stage sep button, right? None of this it's all
all be
automated.
automatic,
All these rockets are automated. Yeah, exactly. So you're probably right. They probably were running a test sequence. They probably forgot to comment out or null out in the sequence the fairing deploy. And then the flight computer was like, all right, well,
It's time.
it's time.
And somebody removed the shunts to be able to make them active.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I wonder, because they're not explosive, right? It's just a
I don't know how
nutty-gooey
they're
mechanism.
Yeah,
I don't
have
know
no
how
idea.
they're doing it, but the most common way is explosive, in which case you have shunts to keep everything grounded and give electricity a simple and quick path from one side to the other that doesn't go through the initiator. And when you are ready for launch, one of the last things that is done is to remove those shunts, and then your deployment system is active and capable.
Are explosive?
They are.
Is that still the common way of doing it?
That's the way we did it.
Well, I mean, that's not a great example.
I only know of that, and then
Separation always worked.
I only know of that, and then the spring-loaded method, similar to like the interstage portions. But those are the only two that I know of, and I have no idea which one Gilmore Space is using.
Yeah, like ULA uses them inside of a rubber balloon, and so the explosion is captured inside of an envelope. But the change in pressure on the inside of the envelope basically pushes everything apart. I'm not sure how SpaceX does it, but VO had a shape charge inside of an aluminum extrusion that was captured inside of a balloon. So you would, like an airbag, it would pop the airbag and push the extrusion apart and break the extrusion.
Man, these companies make me sad if this is actually how they're doing it.
You just gave me flashbacks of the Glory spacecraft that the payload fairing didn't deploy on a ULA launch, and the whole thing was just lost. Actually,
Yeah, I
now
think
that I
that
think
was
about it,
Stuck inside of a shell.
Yep.
Help.
Same thing happened to
think that
ISRO
was-
on one of their launches.
I think that was different with the Glory launch. I think that was actually related to this big metal quality control scandal that had happened like a decade ago, something like that. So I can't remember it exactly, but I know Glory, and then there was another payload on the same type of rocket that had a similar issue with the payload fairing, and it turned out that it was related actually to the company that provided the metal line about the quality of the metal.
Yeah, the
Something like
subcontractor
that.
for it.
So
That's all I remember, was that they, fired and got rid of their subcon that, and then didn't have any problems after that I know of.
Let's be clear. The future fairing deploys is the rocket lab chomper.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. All right, hang on. I forgot. Ryan, what is the noise the chomper makes again? You
That's a great
don't
question.
remember your own
Kerplunk.
quiz answer.
That's a great
Kerplunk.
question.
You don't remember your own question, Ryan.
It's a really insightful. I remember the question. The question that I asked was, what sound does the
Curious.
fairing make? So
And
I remember that. So
what was the
I'm
answer?
not sure what you're trying to get onto here. So
What was the answer, Ryan?
I can't remember exactly what you answered with on that occasion.
No. I want to know what the correct answer was,
What I can tell you
Ryan.
is that the correct answer was perfectly related to the noise that the fairing closing actually made. See, it was the correct answer.
I'm calling shenanigans on your questions. I'm calling shenanigans.
Yeah, that question of
Shenanigans,
when, the Australian question, like, how do years work different upside down? Like, what's going on here? Like, how did you? Every question you write from now on, Ryan, is going to be scrutinized from here to the end from here to infinity. So
Don't listen to these guys, Ryan. I think you've been doing an excellent job, except for
Me
that
too,
very
me too.
subjective and matter of
It's not
opinion. What
subjective.
sound
It
does
was
it
not
make?
subjective whatsoever. It was factual, based on facts.
No, here is proof that he's not doing a good job. Look at that score I've got. That's not a good job. He's not doing a good job. I
We know
disagree.
I thought you got one today.
No.
Ryan doesn't even have a score. So how's Ryan able to even have an opinion about this? So
That would be funny if on here we gave him a score. Like, first off, I love that he's just like very disappointed in us. He's judging us super hard on the right side of the screen.
I mean, following his eye line, it looks like he's disappointed in you specifically.
that photo of me, I swear to God, that photo of me is so serious. That's like not how I am at all.
I love that both you and Dutta are wearing sunglasses. I think that's fantastic. We should get Mike in sunglasses too.
I need to retake this. Yeah, I need to retake this. Shoot.
And we're gonna have to get the chat in sunglasses too, man.
Instead of the googly eyes, that can be done.
Ryan, we should put you in sunglasses as well, and get Jamie in sunglasses.
I think I've inadvertently moved the show to After Dark. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
All good. All good.
Next quiz question. How many sunglasses does the Tomorrow crew own?
I own so many sunglasses.
We need one of your big, obnoxious Disney pair or something like that. I know you have at least one.
I have no Disney sunglasses. I don't have a lot of Disney swag. I have some Disney shirts, and that's about it.
Hey, store idea. We need some Tomorrow sunglasses.
Oh God. It'd be like the 2000 sunglasses was like T and then the M and the R make out the sunglasses.
Hell
and then
yeah!
The N.
Oh my God, I'd wear that. I'd wear that in a heartbeat.
You wouldn't be able to see anything because like you need the O to be the eyes, but it's way off on the side.
That's one eye is fine enough. That's
oh man. That is great.
So I don't know how Gilmore is doing it, but I can share.
Someone trying to bring us back to the actual show. Love it.
Yep. That's my job.
Well,
I found a couple different ways. One of which is a section, like a top-down cross section of a band that goes around the outside of the vehicle or the outside of an interface, and you have a bolt that has a seam that has a series of bolts and these captured stainless steel oval tubes, and they are returned to round by explosive or air force, and that shears the bolt and releases this band. You can put that seam wherever you want, but it has to be a straight seam. There's another one here with that same
Dada,
kind
can you zoom in? Yeah, thank you.
envelope is inside of an extrusion, so you can see here that the extrusion is actually connected, but it's a smaller smaller span, smaller width. And with the expansion of that metal tube, or with an explosion or an air pressure on the inside, it actually shears those two pieces, so it will separate one side from the other. One of the downsides to this is that you have to bolt this this seam to your composite fairing or whatever it is all along its perimeter, and there are many small bolts. Don't ask me how I know. Another variation on the theme is something like this, where you've got something that expands and pushes away a thin wall. The thin wall can be one piece or two pieces, but it breaks that, and that permits the two pieces to be separated. And finally, similar to the first band, if you have a separation device on just a real thin strip of metal that can take this cleat and clamp these two pieces together, kind of like a V-band clamp, and used for other aspects of connecting fluids. It keeps tension around that band and keeps the V, kind of keeps a clamping force between those two pieces. Once the band is removed, the clamping force is removed, and the two pieces can separate up and down.
Interesting.
Nerd.
Reminds me, the last one especially kind of reminded me of the O-ring diagrams that they had for the space shuttle solid rocket boosters. Different system, but kind of similar.
What did
Interesting.
somebody do?
Well, anyway.
Is that Jamie trying to zoom?
Me? No.
Whoa, messed up. Is that me who messed that up? Hope not. There.
I got it.
Okay. Sorry about
This
that.
is why we don't add objects into dynamic scenes. Let's move on. We've broken this.
Something that I know that Dutta missed is that Rocket Lab did have a successful launch this week of their Electron rocket. They did the second out of two synthetic aperture radar satellites for IQPS. Second of 8. They have 8 of those missions that they're going to be doing. A couple more I know they have planned for this year, and then moving into next year. So that's great. I also thought it was interesting. Actually, before that, we also had the reentry of the third Varda spacecraft that had a. I thought initially that it was having some sort of material growth experiment because it was for the U.S. Air Force, but it turns out that it was essentially a not a data relay tracker, but a positional tracker to probably related to some of their point-to-point cargo transporting type of stuff, to make sure that they could be able to have a strong, steady signal for those types of missions that they want to do in the future. So that's great for.
I believe it was
for
a
Varda.
navigational sort of system test that they were doing.
Right.
from the
I'm
Air
sorry. I
Force.
couldn't find the words for that. Aside from that, there was also another launch of the Zhuqiu rocket, which is the methane-powered rocket that a private company in China is doing. Everything went perfectly well with that, and they're already working on their next bigger version for it. And something that we can look forward to for later on this month is that I know Jared is excited about this. Later on this month, China is planning on launching the Tianwan 2 mission, which is their asteroid sample return mission. So that's going to be exciting to see that get launched off.
Yeah, good luck to them, and hopefully we get those samples back and we do a little bit of sharing. So it would be nice.
Sharing is caring.
That's right. I do find it actually really interesting that they have shared quite a bit of science data. In fact, there's not enough time to get into it right now, but there's some really interesting stuff that they have been publishing about the samples that they got back from the Chang'e 6 mission and the materials that the far side of the moon is made out of. And it's wildly different than what anyone was expecting, and kind of changing our model of how the moon was formed. It's still pretty close to the model that we have now of some Mars-sized object hit the Earth, early in the development of the solar system, but that there was a lot more transfer of materials from that object and from the Earth, and a lot of it ended up on the far side that we didn't get samples of previously from the near side, the Earth-facing side of the moon. So
We
some
can't go to the
really
far
interesting
side, though.
stuff.
No, the far side's where the alien base is located. We're not allowed on that side.
You just got to stay away from that particular crater.
Right. That's right. It's the entrance into, because the moon is hollow and the aliens live inside the moon, right? That's
right.
Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
It's not a hollow Earth
Clearly.
theory. It's hollow moon theory. That's where the
Hollow
aliens live
moon
there.
theory.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, though, it turns out that the water ice that everyone is so interested in getting, and the helium-3 materials, looks like they're a lot more widespread than we thought, and not just relegated to the craters that are permanently shadowed. Like, you literally could grab some from anywhere and be able to harvest water from it. It's nuts.
Yeah.
So
that should help provide some no elbowing of everybody as we try to get resources on the moon. So, you pick your area, we'll pick ours. We'll and maybe we'll meet up every once in a while, play some tennis or something. I don't know. So
despite all their other secrecy, props to China for sharing that information with the world.
Yeah, greatly appreciated. So
with
Is
that,
that sharing or bragging?
Yes.
it's we could call it a humble brag.
It's allowed. Come on, it's allowed.
There we go.
Right? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Sure.
First country to launch from the far side of the moon. I think that's impressive enough to warrant bragging rights.
I mean,
100%.
we did it when we landed on the moon, planting an American flag in front of everybody.
Oh, man. Big thank you to Dave Avery, who just gifted 5 TMRO memberships. So for those of you, if you're here, that received those memberships, we will be starting our members-only After Dark in just a little bit. And with that, I think we should go ahead and thank a lot of our members who have signed up. We've actually got quite a few new members who signed up since last week. So big shout out and thank you to Shawl, ABAMD, which I think is pronounced Abba MD is how I want to say that. Also Kal-El, welcome back. Thank you for signing up again, as well as Nerdologist. And Derek Richardson, Sputnik Geezer, I love your username. Toast Chickens, Perrin W, CHL, and Alan C. So thank you to all of you and to everyone who has signed up for our member support. And in our suborbital systems, we also have a new member, Chibi, who last week was able to tell us a little bit of a story in the After Dark about how he might have been responsible for why Dutta missed a shuttle launch.
Is Chibi back? Are we gonna?
I didn't see him in the chat room, but if you are watching, Chibi, and you have your camera stuff worked out, please join us and tell us the whole story of what happened with that umbilical cable. But thank you as well to all of our
consequences.
Thank you, big support. Thank you as well to all of our suborbital and escape velocity members. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month, and it keeps the show going. So thank you to everyone for all of that support. Thank you for watching our show. That is it for today, and you will be getting the link if you have signed up for our memberships to the After Dark show, which will be starting momentarily after this. So thank you again, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Man, I thought